everybody? It's Pete Blumers with Corrections Unfiltered. Have a great show tonight, but before I get to that and introduce everybody, I want to thank you for the fact that you take the time out of your busy schedule to watch these podcasts. We're trying to do what we can to bring some great information to you like we are tonight. And we also need to know what you think about it. So if you don't mind, hit the comments and let us know. If there's subject that you want us to talk about, please hit that on the comments also. We really hope that we're doing a great enough job that you would like to subscribe and share our content with other people so we can continue to grow this thing. And tonight's a great example. We got the same cast of characters. We've got Rick Harns, we've got Chris McConnell, Charlie Bueno, but more importantly, we have Marcus Hodges. And Marcus Hodges is another person we got on LinkedIn and we were talking back and forth, and I'm realizing that he had quite a heck of a career. In fact, I've got like 15 pages of a resume sitting here in front of me. I'm doing it because you've earned every bit of this. You've earned every bit of this, and I'm very proud to have you on here. So, Marcus, would you mind tell everybody, your background and how you came up through the ranks and then the position that you're in now?
Look, guys, it's a funny story, but it's not a funny story. I chose corrections by accident. It was me going to college, not knowing what I want to do, not having no clue. All I did was play football. Never went to college. And Chris will love this. I fell in love with a warden. And I fell in love with a warden because the warden had a nice suit on, had a big watch on. And I said, you know what? That's what I want to do. I'm going to work in prisons because I want to be like this guy. Originally, I was supposed to go to Marine Corps because they look nice and dress blues. So I can tell you right from the jump, yeah, see, that's what I wanted to do. So I meet this warden as a freshman, change my major, and when I graduate, I go work at a prison where he was a warden. He left, but that's how I got started in corrections. I knew nothing about it. It was a warden, Chris, that put me in corrections. In 32 years, I am still here. I've did 25 years in the Virginia Department of Corrections, where I've worked probation, parole, and I've worked institutions from max to medium to minimum. And I currently I'm an associate director of the Court Services Offender Supervision Agency in Washington, D.C., and also I'm the president of the American Probation and Parole Association. So all that within a 32-year career.
Well, that's a tremendous career. You've got a lot accomplished. And I guess for us, and what's really exciting us to talk to you is we were the guys that signed off on people going to parole, but we didn't know what was happening once they left the door. Can you kind of give us a rundown of how that parole side operates?
Yeah, here's the thing. In corrections, like in Virginia, lots of your combined systems, where they're all from another Department of Corrections. So you have the institution side of the house, and you have the probation and parole side of the house. So when you have that, it's kind of a seamless operation where you have that because you have reentry works very well because you have those who are serving time. 95% of your people are getting out on parole or supervised release or probation, and we're tasked with supervising them. So our main job is community corrections. We are supervising those in the community using every resource available so they can become productive citizens. We all want the same thing. You're on the front end, we're on the back end, and that's all it is.
Hey, Marcus, and welcome to Corrections Unfiltered. Since you mentioned the United States Marine Corps, let me just lean up here a little bit and just give a shout out to the United States Army.
Yes.
Anyway, just so I and our listeners completely understand, like in layman terms, community corrections refers to the supervision and rehabilitation of offenders in the community rather than a correctional institution.
Yes.
And when I say community, I mean methods like, I'm assuming, electronic monitoring, house arrests, day reporting centers, probation, parole. Is that accurate?
You are right on. So look at it this way. So when you think about community corrections, you have really two highways. You have those who are placed on probation to serve a term in lieu of incarceration. So instead of going to prison, they will serve their term in the community under community corrections. If they violate, they can go to prison. But they also have the other highway with those who have an active prison sentence or a jail sentence, and then they're released to supervised probation. It could be probation, it could be parole, or it could be supervised release. At the end of the day, it is a release mechanism for a certain period of time. So we talk about early on, we talk about 3, 5 years, whatever the tail is. Sometimes you'll have a supervision period and you have to report to a probation and parole officer and have clean urines, get a job, we use electronic monitoring, really trying to reintegrate people back into the community or reintegrate them so they don't go to prison.
We've used the term tail. Can you go into that a little bit?
Yes. So everything when we talk about tails, we mean that you get an active sentence and there's a tail for some cases it could be over your head. Meaning that let's say I give you a prime example. Let's say I have a 3-year sentence, a 3-year prison sentence, and I had a 2 or 4 year tail after that. And some people in Virginia we call it good behavior. It's a period of good behavior. Well, that active time is still over my head. So when I am released back into the community under community corrections, if I violate any of that time that's over my head, that's that tail, I am subject to get for a longer prison sentence if I violate or get revoked or something like that. What does
Right.
revocation mean? Well, everybody on supervised release, parole, probation, there's a set of rules, and they're called conditions of release. And it can be from staying law abiding, not breaking law, no rules, uh, drug testing, no positive drug test, absconding. That means simply your whereabouts are simply unknown by your officer. It could be a change of address and not notifying your officer. So every state, every locality has a set of conditions that the releasing authority sets for those that are placed on supervised probation and parole. So if you
Mhm.
revoke that tail, you're able to get some of that time or all of that time on a revocation, sending you either back to the local jail or sending you back to prison.
Gotcha. Yep. Good.
Okay.
Thanks for explaining
Great.
that. Appreciate it. One of the things we saw in, in my experience in prison was typically what we heard was halfway house.
Yes.
Is that something that you use in Virginia, in DC, or
We
was that a
do. We're feds. I mean, so you'll love this. All our people, we got people from Bureau of Prisons. I mean, so where I work, we're a federal agency with a distinct local mission, and that is the supervision of DC code offenders.
okay?
But all our people, because of the Reviolations Act that happened in 2005, 1999 in DC, all our guys go to Bureau of Prisons, and so they're released back to DC. So they're all over the country. And so
Hmm.
when they come back to supervised probation or supervised parole for us from all over the country from Bureau of Prisons.
Gotcha. Gotcha.
Okay.
Okay.
Essentially, it's a sentencing option. And can I assume this is nonviolent, low risk type offenders who have
So
been
let me tell you
sentenced?
about halfway houses. It's an old model. So let's get into it. It's an old model, and so when you think of a halfway house, you have people that would serve time. They would get out. Let's say they served 10 years. And then instead of throwing them back in the community, we know sometimes that's a failure because they don't have a job. Their housing, they don't stabilize housing. Those factors that help them make it, they don't have it anymore. So the halfway house was created just like a halfway back. You were in prison, you hit the halfway house, you get a job, you save some money, you get a residence, you get those things, and then you're able to trickle out to the community. That all sounds good. And you would think it would work. It doesn't.
Hmm. Hmm.
You
Hmm.
think, I mean, it's like transitional housing, and we come with in corrections, we come with these great concepts. They look good on paper, but when it meets the people and meeting it, once someone hits community, like in prison, there are rules and there's an environment, and you abide by those rules. And you are on a program, you're going to do all the things you need to do to get out prepared because you're in that nice, sterile environment where you have to, for the most part, live in that environment. Once you hit the community and girlfriend and all the other factors in community hits you, some of those things just don't line up properly. And so while it's a
Hmm.
great initial concept, most halfway houses, I'll be honest with you, and this will be controversial, are marginal at best.
Yeah.
The
Yep.
intent is great. The intent is great, but it's just some of our people getting into the community and all the community factors that hit them just doesn't line up.
It's interesting you say that, and I didn't want to say it, but since you put it out there, uh, you know, uh, when I know associate warden over programs, I would sign off on the packets coming from the case managers unit team on these guys going to halfway houses, and stand in main line. Inmates that's their chance to catch you and voice complaints. And the typical complaint I got from guys that were going out to a halfway house was they would. First of all, they didn't want to go. They wanted to stay and finish their bit, so they didn't have that hanging over them because they knew they would fail at a halfway house. They were going to go back to where they were incarcerated, and as you said, all the factors, all the things that got them in trouble in the first place are all going to be there, whether it be their friends or girls or drugs or the combination of all those things. It was almost a recipe for failure. Does that sound kind of right? I mean, the way you're talking about it, it does seem like that would be a problem.
I'm gonna say that I'm gonna say the ones that are structured work well. And I'm talking about security was structured, meaning that there is no, I'm opening the gate at 6 a.m., you leave, go find a job and come back at 6 p.m. Because they're
Right.
not going to do that. But those
Right.
halfway houses or those transitional houses that actually go and take them to the job and pick them up because it's a halfway house. I mean, so we think that we're in prison, we're living in this world, and now all of a sudden you're free, and the world has changed. I mean, the world changes all the time. Now you're
Yeah.
free. Now you're asking them to navigate all these things, and they're not equipped to navigate, and they're not. And so you probably will see more failures, and I call them systematic failures because we know better. we know what
Uh-huh.
environment they're coming from, where we're structured, disciplined, their programming, and then all of a sudden we take them all the way over here with a halfway house and say, now go do it.
Mhm.
And most can't. I'm not saying all, but most can't. It's just too much because this rapidly evolving world that we live in.
Statistic wise, do they say halfway houses are, do they work, or are they a failure, or it's just something you don't hear about?
I think that you don't hear about it. I still think you hear more language about transitional housing, and I think that's more structured. But it goes back to Rick. Most people don't want to go anymore. If you say the word halfway house, people are like, ah. I mean, in DC, they had a place called Hope Village, and they called it Hopeless Village. I didn't call it that. I didn't call it that. That's what they had called it. I think the transitional supporting housing model that wraps a continued program and really is a handoff where you are actually getting people jobs or teaching skills for jobs. That's a continuation of prison and institutions, and do a continuation piece and then a handoff to community corrections is the way to go. I think we're mapping that right now. You're starting to see more transitional and supportive housing options and doing away with the whole halfway house ideology.
Mhm. Mhm.
I was going to ask, what is your thought on what do you think works best for halfway house versus day reporting centers versus electronic monitoring versus house arrest versus just probation parole? What seems to work out there?
All of it does when done properly. I mean, I can go through every list of it. I mean, electronic monitor is a great tool, but electronic monitor is not going to prevent crime. It'll tell you when a crime occurred. But
Mhm.
it will help you get
Mhm.
arrested, but
Mhm.
it's not going to stop the act of crime.
Mhm.
I think it really boils down to the individual. I think historically, I can remember when we started in prison. So when I started in prison, we didn't have nowhere had the job skills programs that people have now. And I'm talking about job skills, the jobs that they can work out in the community. In the prisons, we had jobs that you work to stay busy. It was for security management. Let's call it what it was. It was
Mhm.
for security management, keeping inmates busy so they don't cause no problem. They didn't even think about them getting out because that wasn't my problem.
Mhm.
My
Mhm.
job is to make sure you
Yeah.
don't go over that fence. That there are no assaults, anything like that. That's it.
Mhm.
And now I think we've had this whole notion with reentry where we're starting to do better job placement. We're starting doing job skill training that transitions to the community. And I think we're starting to see a lot of that stuff that really helps guide people. Really meeting people where they are. So that's what I'm excited about. Futuristically, you look at our population, we have a geriatric prison population that are getting out.
Yeah.
And that's the scary part because you tell me you want them to work, but if I'm 62, 63, working ain't something I want to do. So how do we support that? And then I get them on supervision and they have all these needs. Sometimes they're in a wheelchair or need housing needs. I'm trying to go find that. I mean, so it gets difficult.
Mhm.
But I think back to your question, Chris, I think it all works if we do it well and do it with fidelity and we pick the right tool because they're all tools.
If I look at it this way, so community corrections, I would assume the goal is to reduce the population within the facility, integrate them back into the community, reduce recidivism. And we always hear this phrase, it's a phrase we always heard, reentry starts on the first day of incarceration. But to the average correctional officer, that's a fancy phrase. It doesn't mean a whole lot. Do you think like more training is needed in order to get everyone kind of like on the same page?
Yes, I think more. First of all, let's be honest. We've been broke for years because we've all been siloed. I mean, if you really talk, reentry starts with sentencing. When that person is sentencing, I mean, when a person is actually sitting in the local jail before they even go to incarceration, we should be thinking about reentry. If we're really thinking about a holistic approach of how to improve people and improve communities, it actually starts right there. Um, if you think about it that way. So we think about it that way, that person, whoever's going to get, is already getting programming. It's already been assessed, no matter how much time they get. I mean, no matter how it's already happened right at sentencing. So when they come into corrections and deal with that correctional officer or correctional staff, there's already a roadmap of what this person can do. Now, I'm not asking correctional officers to be therapeutic counselors. I'm not asking them to be job coaches. I'm not asking them to do any of that things. But the first thing a correctional officer can do is really, and I think we miss the opportunity at times in corrections, is a whole notion of rapport, relationship building. And what I always tell people, even when I work in corrections, one thing I can teach everybody is common courtesies. We're trying to be talk about humanity. I can teach you say good morning, good afternoon, the simple things that we learn in kindergarten. If you simply model those things, oh, we got great success. I don't need you to be a therapeutic counselor. I don't need you to have a PhD in psychology to teach these things and models these things. Because the one thing I learned in prison, inmates are watching you all the
Mhm.
time,
Mhm.
Yep.
and they know
Yep.
who's the best dressed. They know who they can get away with. They know who's fair, firm, and consistent. They know who to pick on. And so if we have more people just walk the line, I'm a firm believer they will walk the line. Firm believer in that. So I think as a correctional officer, that's the role model. That is the role
Mhm.
model that's in there 24/7. They see that they can just be the role model because people watch them all the time.
Mhm. Yep.
In my experience getting into corrections, I knew nothing about reentry. It came up in conversation once in a while, but then when I became a correctional counselor and we got a little bit of classes and some schooling on it, and we started our reentry program, I always thought that that should be part of your training as a correctional officer when you start. So
Hmm.
you kind of get an idea of, if somebody has a question or like you said, it comes up, at least you could give some kind of guidance, you
It's
know.
real simple. What's your plans? I mean, we started out. I mean, look, this was 1992. We used to ask, what are your plans when you get out?" And I didn't care who you were. We didn't care if you were lifers or whatever. I mean, what are your plans? Because everybody has dreams. So
Right.
if I can get you to dream, your dreams can come reality through hard work. They can. I mean, so what are your plans when you get out? And then you work together with treatment and everybody else to really work on what's the goal and have those type conversations. I'm not asking anybody to solve anything. I still think even antisocial people can solve their own problems given the right environment. I'm a firm believer in that. But if we're able to create a culture where people can ask those questions and it's reinforced all the time, I think that's where we need to go. Reentry is everybody's job. It's not the counselor's job. It's not the
Yep.
warden's job. It's food service. It's every job that you have in the prison is about reentry because 95% of the people are coming home.
I was involved in the implementation of a program. I believe that when we include the officers to understand their role, whether it's just to wear your uniform properly for you to abide by your own rules and also hold the inmates accountable to follow their rules, you're given them more purpose. Chris shared a video with us today that was compelling. And when you watch the video, my opinion, you watch the video, you get the sense that the staff were never taught the importance of their duties and the importance of their role. So they saw themselves as, what were they saying, overpaid babysitters and things of that nature. And that's too bad. It's too bad that those staff feel that way. I believe that if we begin including them in the programming, which reentry and the other types of things, setting the examples, they're going to feel better about that uniform they're wearing. They're going to feel better about the money they're receiving. And maybe we can head off that thing where they believe that they're just there to turn a key and open the door and shut the door and count.
See, I look at probation and parole officers, and I look at correctional officers almost the same. There's ones in the community and ones in the institution. So I think they're got the I think there's the same. The rules are the same. There's conditions inside. There's conditions in the community. The thing we're able to do is this whole notion of called motivational interviewing, and we use this thing called core correctional practices. And the one thing about core correctional practice is role clarification. We understand. I want my people to understand their role and the importance of the role that they have in the job that they have. And so that role clarification piece gets right to what you're talking about because then people take some pride in when they do, when they know that their role is important. See, sometimes we think it's about money, and why it is because correctional officers and probation and parole officers are kind of underpaid in my overtime when I look at other salaries. But at the end of the day, people show up anyway for service. And so on that role clarification piece, if I can show you the importance of your role and how it improves communities and how it improves lives, because I guarantee you, all of us got stories that we touched somebody's life that came to us and said, you know what? It was you. It was you taking the time to do this. It was you listening to me. It was you. We have millions of stories like that. So that role clarification piece for me is huge for our young staff to make sure they got it. And I think institutions with correctional officers don't use that enough.
I'm going to veer off here. Just one. I can't help myself. I got to veer off here for a second. So, TV always portrays correctional officers in a certain light, and it's usually negative. And when you see a lot of these movies and shows, people on the probation and the probation side of things, same thing. They're looking. Their only focus is to violate a guy and get him thrown back in the joint. How do you deal with that?
I get irate. I get angry. I mean, because that's not the true story. I mean, I'll give you a prime example. So everybody knows about Meek Mill and the whole situation out of Pennsylvania. And so we had a conference in New York, and I had this reporter ask me, we're talking about probation and parole supervision, and we're talking about the stories, and he brought up Meek Mill. And how do I feel about it? I said, what do you mean how I feel about it? It was a bad situation, but that's one incident of millions. You're not talking about all the good stuff we do, because the media sells you want to hit this one-off, but you're not going to talk about the thousands or millions of interactions that make a difference. I need you to tell the real story. And I think that's on all of us. I think when I think of corrections, we have allowed policing to always have the narrative of the story, because that's sexy, policing. And corrections, whether it's community correctional institutions, we've kind of stayed back because we didn't voice. And I don't think we tell our everyday story of what we do, because everybody can't do what we do. I tell people all the time, anybody can carry a gun and you can ride around in your car. But I want you to walk a tier by yourself with 300 inmates by yourself. You want to talk about using every skill you got? Go do that at a maximum security prison, because I'm going to tell you what, that's how I learned my job. I learned my job on lockdown, scared like you know what, thought I had the answers and I didn't, but I learned it, and I'm a better communicator for it. So I think it's on us as professionals, like this podcast, to continue to tell our stories, show the work that we do, so that narrative changes a little bit. But the media is still going to be the media.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Well, we talked about that in this in a previous podcast, and again, it relates to what you're talking about. And we can always say with the BOP, they're terrible about getting messages out. You got the one line, there was a canned response to the media, and then the families out there, or whomever that would talk to the media, and they would give a completely different story that made us look terrible. And you kind of hear what you're saying. Same with community corrections in a lot of way. They don't get ahead of the story. They're behind it, trying to put out the fire that's started. That's totally, there's no fact to it.
Look, I'm gonna tell you what. For years, I always tell people when I was just speaking, I just say we're in a thankful job, thankless. Nobody thanks for what we do. And I changed my narrative. I thought that was the most stupidest thing, because I'm tying in to that narrative. I think it's the most thankful job, because it's been the most rewarding career I've ever had, and the lives I'm able to touch. I'm thankful that I've been able to do this work, and so I can't worry about what others think of what I do, but I am thankful to being able to do it. And so I had to really change my narrative of how I thought about my whole career, because it's not thankless, it's thankful, and it's been wonderful.
Isn't it amazing what changing one word can do to your total morale and the morale of the people around you?
Yes, but we get beat down so much. I mean, I can remember, we can have incidents in prisons or even in community corrections, and you hid because you didn't want to be on the front page of the paper. So you didn't tell the good story, because you know what? Well, they'll look for the bad story. Now, look, media, come on in. Let me show you what we do. You already going to talk about us anyway, so I'm going to tell you all the good that we do. And when the bad happens, guess what? I can revert back to the good.
Let me tell you, we did a podcast. What was it, last week, guys? With Paul Raymond, who owns PDR Strategies, and he has a section of that called Corrections Communicated. And what is free. I was messing around with it today. You can hop online, you can download these formats, so you can already have press releases or information ready to release, even to family members. He's really taking that same approach of, why are we letting them give the narrative? Why are we allowing them to tell the narrative? Let's take the narrative over. So if you haven't seen that, you might want to watch it and take a look at his website, because it's pretty good.
It's a shift for us. We like being a Secret Service. It was convenient. It was easy. I mean, my mother would ask me, Marcus, what are you doing? I'll tell her. She still didn't know. I mean, and then one day she took me to work. I said, I work behind there. She's like, you do what? Still didn't know.
I think for years.
Yes.
I think for years that worked. The secrecy worked. Well. But we talked about this in our last podcast, again, with this 24-hour news cycle, it doesn't work anymore. Like you said,
media killed us.
one little incident controls the entire narrative, and that's all they hear is that one little incident. They don't hear about the, like you said, the millions of little interactions, positive interactions that happen daily, weekly, monthly. So yeah.
Unverified social media kills us right now, and we can't do nothing about it. And it's almost to the point since it's unverified. I said, Mom, I should put some unverified positive stories out there. Then ain't nobody checking that no more. But I'm not.
That's a good idea.
That's
Yeah,
funny.
we're gonna spin it a little bit. We're gonna do it that way.
That's funny.
Shh.
When you talk about it, you're absolutely right. This is the forgot about profession. They don't want to hear about it, and when you do hear about it, it's bad. And I said that probably after I had a conversation with a few people. I'm never going to be that person that badmouths corrections. And from the bottom of my heart, this was the best job that I ever had. I have a passion for it. I love it. And this going on here is like kudos to everybody because, and I said it before, you're thinking about the people coming up and all you want to kind of do is school everybody. And we need to have a pat on the back for a while because we do things that no one else ever knows about. And you know what?
Right.
We don't go out there and don't talk about it unless it's amongst ourselves. And personally for me, if no one ever finds out about it, that's not a big deal either because it's in what's in my heart that I do it for. And that's why I said I will never I don't have a reason to bash corrections. But the media, you never hear, very rarely do you hear good. That's like when we talked to Justin. He put that out there, the good things as they do. That's the way it should be.
Yeah,
Because
over and over again.
There's good, bad in every profession. But we're like the forgotten, and that hurts my heart.
But it's natural though. People they love like the show Lockup, and I don't remember what network it was on, but it was everything was hyper dramatized and shank, and then they'd have parenthetic explanation what a shank is, and all this nonsense. And people like that because it's dramatic. This is the age of reality TV and so forth, and let's face it, politics is reality TV anymore, and so they're digging it.
Yes.
And so if you went out there and said, hey, we're doing this and that and the other, and we got these, there's a certain amount of the population that would get it, but a lot of people would go, it's boring. I want to hear about, the drama,
What sells?
What sells? Yeah.
What
Yeah.
sells?
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. Clickbait,
Do you have any success stories about your staff?
Thousands. I can name thousands. We're in Washington D.C. and we're working with the surge that's going on with the law enforcement trying to reduce crime. I got officers working around the clock, and it's funny, we're probation and parole, but we're working with ATF, DEA, U.S. Marshals, every acronym that can think of that's in D.C. we're working with, and they don't know who we are. We're probation and parole supervision. We don't know who we are, but now they know who we are because we have the intelligence. We have everything that they ever need. We're in the community working every day, and so I probably shouldn't say this, but I'll tell you, we were trying to run the marshals to death. What I'm most proud of, a couple things. I am proud on the public safety side that when we're able to intervene and get somebody off the street that we don't create another victim. And then what all we do is still about public safety and it's really about reducing victimization. I am very proud when we are very proactive and able to pull somebody off the street that was going to create another victim. But I'm also equally as proud when someone does everything they're supposed to do. They've got a job, they work, they got their own place, they're taking care of their kids, and they're released from supervised probation and parole. I think I'm equally as proud as both of them because that's the mission of what we do. We do it all. If you can't get it done here, and you're going to create a victim, or you're going to make the community worse, then guess what? You need to go serve time and figure it out, and hopefully you age out. But if you come out, we can give you all the tools, and you get a job, and you take care of yourself, and you take care of your family, and then you're released on supervised probation as a productive citizen. That's success. The only bad thing is y'all don't get to see that.
Nope.
You don't get to see it at all. And the success didn't start with me. Let's be real. It started with you. And so how can we share that pipeline narrative so all of us can get an attaboy for this first success? And it's not for us pumping ourselves up individually. It's pumping up a system that is working the way it's intended to work. And
Mhm.
so it's those things that get me excited when I see that. When I see someone who got incarcerated and come out with a trade, and that trade landed them a job, and we're able to get them a job. And now all of a sudden, the program that they had in prison when they was an addict, he's still using the same program out in the community. She's doing the same program in the community, and those things turn into a productive citizen that creates a better community. I mean, and it all started where? It starts here, but we all supported each other through the process. That's what excites me the most. Those are stories I love to tell.
Do you find budgetary constraints to be an obstacle that continuously you face that continuously, or is the money there to actually get these programs in the prison system and in the community correction system?
Rick, we just print more money. I mean, we just find more gold bars.
That's what I do. That's what I do in the basement.
So we all get printers.
There we go.
Great answer. Great answer.
For what we do in this world, you can never have enough money.
Right.
And for years, corrections has not probably been on the front end of money. It's been on the back end of money. It's what they can, jails included. It's always probation and parole included. When you talk about resources from a staffing standpoint, having the money for programming and stuff like that, corrections, our industry is always, even to this day, is always at the end of the table, end of the line. They'll fund law enforcement, they'll fund police, they'll fund courts, they'll fund all those things, and rightfully so. But at the end of the day, you're funding them is going to increase what I have to do. And there's not much money left for us to do that. And that's why I think it's continues to important for us to tell the story, because you funded all this front end stuff. That's going to lead to possibly lead to more people being incarcerated. Now I have less correctional officers. I have less treatment staff. I have less probation and parole officers. Their caseloads are skyrocketing. And then you want to know why reentry doesn't work, because the officers out there with 102 cases, and all they're going to do is surveillance and violate. Because I can't work with nobody because I don't have time. You know, so that's always a major concern for us. And that's why it's important, like this podcast, they continue to educate people that with proper funding, we can do exactly what we were designed to do if we all had the proper funding.
So considering that type of environment where the staff might feel underfunded and the different challenges they have, what are the things that you do as a supervisor to keep them going, to keep them motivated?
I tell people we're in the people business. So, I mean, in DC, I tell them I don't do politics, I do people. We're in the people business, and people are dependent on us. I know this may sound cliche, but I told them losing is not an option. And I coach football and I play football. We ain't losing. I mean, because if we lose, the people we're supposed to be servicing, they're going to lose. And I can't have them lose because we lost. So I have a win mentality at work all the time. We need to win. And market, people say, well, Marcus, that is unrealistic. Well, I'm an unrealistic guy. We have got to win today, because if we lose, people suffer from our losses, and I don't want people. Nobody signed up for that. So I really try to get to the core about this is about humanity, and this is servant leadership at its best. It's about humanity. It's about us making people and community better, because that's what you signed up for. Despite budget, despite obstacles, we have got to find a way, and that's why collaboration is really key to my business. Where you in institutions you don't have that. But for me, I can collaborate with community partners where I may not have a resource. I can reach over and say, you know what, I'm gonna collaborate with you because you have it. So collaboration is really key in community corrections, because in those combined states where you have prisons and probation and parole under the same umbrella, who do you think get the money? It's not probation and parole, it's prison. And so probation and parole has got to really work on collaborate with community partners to get the resource they need to make people better.
You know, I know we talked about budgetary constraints and that'll affect staffing. Right now, some of the prisons out there are understaffed, not because of money, because of interest. And I was wondering, are you running it into the same thing in community corrections as a whole?
This is a different generation. Recruitment and
Lack of
retention is tough, because think about this for a moment. ICE today is a $50,000 sign-on bonus. You tell me what correctional department is offering a $50,000 sign-on bonus with a 20-year federal law enforcement retirement. Hey, look, I said, look, ICE, I might be a little old, but I might come over there. $50,000. And you got a law enforcement that are offering huge signing bonuses, but corrections is not. Here's the funny thing. During COVID, and this, I don't know if you know this, but in some states, probation and parole officers were inside working institutions as correctional officers. I know it happened in the state of Florida. It happened in New York, and there are a couple other states because they couldn't fill their ranks. So the probation and parole officers were actually going into the prison to be correctional officers. And is that
No
the way
idea.
of the future? It
Mhm.
possibly could be.
No idea. Yeah.
I didn't know that either.
So one more question from it has to do with how much resistance do you get? Like do you deal with people that have some control over the purse strings that are absolutely adamantly against success of people being released, I guess, you know, that are kind of a lock them up, throw away the key mentality, that think that all this uh, effort to get these guys released and in the community and productive members of society is just a foolhardy quest.
Yeah, well, you know, people are tough on crime. California went 3 strikes, you're out. Everybody wants to be tough on crime, but I don't care how tough you are, unless you give them a death sentence or even lifers get out. People are getting out.
Mhm.
I don't care what you do. I mean, so the narrative is, I don't care how tough you are. At the end of the day, they're getting out. What are you doing to prepare them to get out? Because if you're tough on crime and you're not doing anything, you gonna make crime worse. You can create other victims. You can do all kind of stuff. So at the end of the day, you can be tough on crime, but and harsher penalties. But what are you going to do when people are inside? What are you preparing to for release? Because if you do nothing, you're going to get a worse person than you ever had before. You're going to get an animal, and we've seen that happen. Who's going to get out and create more victims? And that is not the intention of harsher penalties. So when you think about people are getting out, I can be harsh, but I better fund institutions to have great programming so they can program, they can rehabilitate, habilitate, no matter which words you use, they can be better. So when they leave and come to the community, which they will, they're better off. And everybody knows, I don't care how bad crime, people age out of crime. People do stupid stuff at 18 and 19. As they get older, they age out of crime.
Yep. Absolutely.
That's right.
Yep. I remember seeing these guys come in and they were hell raisers, and 20 years later I'd catch up with them and they're going, I'm worn out, man. I wish I could. Yeah. I want to.
I'm done. I'm done.
Yeah. I just tried to tell you, there's no retirement system, you know, when you're hooked up with a crew. Yeah. It's,
Yeah, but they come out in great shape though. I mean, I've had some guys come out, man, and they 62, and I'm like, man, you look like you 40. I said, maybe I need to serve some time, because man,
Yeah.
you talking about it's bad. You ate good. You got a 6-pack. You got man at 60. You look good at 62.
yeah. Cold storage, you know.
I'm
Cold
telling
storage.
you. I'm telling you.
Marcus, I'm glad there's people out there like you, man. I'm glad you're the one managing all the faucets of community corrections. I can tell just by our talk today, you're real, you're genuine, you're no fluff, you're right to the point, you understand it. Thank you.
No, thank y'all. I mean, I love. Look, I hear from y'all. We love what we do, and so that's why this storytelling is so important, because I think it can multiply. I think there are a lot of people like us that love corrections, love what we do, but we've been taught not to talk about it. And we had our good days, and we got thousands of stories. We had our bad days, but I think having this conversation and push this agenda is really going to advance the field, and that's what it's about.
I hope your word gets out. I do.
Yes.
I hope we can help and get that out there, because it really is. It needs to be done and done better across the board, not just feds, states, communities, local communities. Yep.
Marcus, is there any other points that you wanted to make sure you got out tonight?
No, I think the main part I got was the partnership. I look at institutions and I look at probation and parole as being seamless. And when it's done in a seamless fashion, no matter if it's federal, state, or local, that's the success. It breeds success. That's the plan that works. That's how I was kind of created to be seamless. We just never really talked about it, because while we were seamless, we were siloed. But if you take the silos away and everybody works together, oh man, we got the plan. We're going to blow the system up.
I think we had a good conversation tonight.
Yeah,
man.
yeah.
I really do.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah, very good.
Marcus, I want to say thank you for being here today on Corrections Unfiltered, because you brought out a whole side of corrections that we've always known about. We've always known it's there, but we didn't have the details on how it actually operates. And I think you gave us a good inside look at what goes on. I tell you, I have a lot of respect for the staff that you supervise, and have a lot of respect for you. I tell you, you've been a great person for this conversation, and I can't thank you enough. I do want to remind people, if you like this conversation with Marcus, please like and subscribe. We don't know what goes on with probation, and now we've had a chance to take a look inside, see what the wizard has when we opened up that curtain. And Marcus, you did that for us, so thank you very much, sir.
Thank you, sir. Greatly appreciate it. Thank you all for what you do.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Appreciate
Thank
it.
you.
Yep. Thank you.